Choreb Beruach, Sword of the Spirit. Interpreted and narrated by Wendy. Bereshit, Genesis, chapter 18. And Yahuwah appeared to him in the plain of Mamre, and he sat at the tent door because of the heat of the day. Then he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 mortals stood near him. And when he saw, he ran to meet them from the tent door. Then he bowed himself towards the ground, and he said, Adonai, now if I have found favor in your sight, pass not away from your servant, I pray you. Allow a little water to be fetched, I pray you, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. Also, I will fetch a morsel of bread. Therefore, comfort your hearts, after which you will pass on. Thus you will have come to your servant. And they said, Do thusly as you spoke. Then Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and said, Quick, make ready 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. Furthermore, Abraham ran to the herd. Then he fetched a good and tender calf. Also, he gave it to a young man, and he hastened to prepare it. Therefore he took butter and milk and the calf, which he had prepared, and set it before them. Then he stood by them under a tree, and they ate. Then they asked him, Where is Sarah, your wife? And he answered, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return to you according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah, your wife, will have a son. However, Sarah heard it in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well stricken in age. The manner of woman ceased to be with Sarah. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am old, will I have pleasure? My Lord being old also? Then Yahuwah asked Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I truly bear a child when I am old? Is anything too hard for Yahuwah? At the appointed time I will return to you, according to the time of life, and Sarah will have a son. However, Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh, because she was afraid. Then he said, No, but you did laugh. Then the mortals arose from there and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on their way. And Yahuwah inquired, Should I hide from Abraham that which I am doing? For surely Abraham will become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth will be endowed by him. For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they will keep the way of Yahuwah, to do justice and judgment, that Yahuwah may bring upon Abraham that which he has spoken of him. Therefore Yahuwah said, Because the cry of Sodom and Amorah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, now I will go down and see whether they have done according to all that has been out of it, which has come to me, and if not, I will know. Then the mortals turned their faces from there, and went toward Sodom. Still yet Abraham stood before Yahuwah. Therefore Abraham drew near and asked, Will you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Perhaps there are 50 righteous in the city. Will you also destroy and not spare the place for the 50 righteous who are in it? That be far from you to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous will be as the wicked? That be far from you. Will not the judge of the whole earth do right? And Yehoah answered, If I find 50 righteous in Sedom, within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sake. So Abraham answered and said, Behold now, I have taken upon myself to speak to Adonai, which I am but dust and ashes. Perhaps the 50 righteous lack 5. Will you destroy all the city because of 5? Then he replied, If I find 45 there, I will not destroy it. And he spoke to him yet again and said, Perhaps there will be 40 found there. Then he replied, I will not do it for the sake of 40. And he said, Oh, let not Adonai be angry, and I will speak. Perhaps there will be 30 found there. Then he replied, I will not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, Behold now, I have taken it upon myself to speak to Adonai. Perhaps there will be 20 found there. Then he replied, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. And he said, Oh, let not Adonai be angry, and I will speak but this once. Perhaps 10 will be found there. Then he replied, I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. Thus Yehoah left as soon as he had finished communing with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place.